I sat in that courtroom with my hands folded in my lap, watching my husband of 32 years lie through his teeth. Vernon looked good up there on that witness stand. Pressed suit, sad eyes, that voice he used when he wanted people to feel sorry for him. The same voice he'd used on me for over 3 decades. "Your Honor," his lawyer was saying, a sharp-dressed man named Gerald Fletcher who probably cost more than most folks' yearly salary, "my client has been the sole provider for this household for their entire marriage. Mrs. Beatrice Monroe has never worked a day in her adult life. She has no understanding of finances, no concept of budgeting, and frankly, Your Honor, she's shown herself to be emotionally unstable and completely dependent on my client for every aspect of her life." I felt my lawyer, Rochelle Whitmore, stiffen beside me. Her hand moved slightly toward mine under the table, a small gesture of solidarity. But I didn't need comforting. Not anymore. I'd cried all my tears over Vernon months ago. Now, I was just waiting. Vernon nodded along with his lawyer's words, playing his part perfectly. "That's right," he said when Fletcher asked him to confirm. "I've been taking care of Beatrice since the day we married. She's not capable of handling money. Never has been. I've paid every bill, managed every account, made every financial decision. Without me, she'd have nothing." The judge, a black woman in her 50s named Judge Patricia Thornton, looked at me over her reading glasses. I met her eyes steadily. 32 years of marriage had taught me how to keep my face calm when everything inside me was screaming. "And the house, Mr. Monroe?" Judge Thornton asked. "You're requesting full ownership of the marital home?" "Yes, Your Honor," Vernon said, and I saw a flash of something in his eyes. Greed, maybe, or triumph. "I paid for that house, every mortgage payment for 28 years. It's only fair that I keep it. Beatrice can find a small apartment somewhere. I'll even help her with the deposit, out of the kindness of my heart." That's when Rochelle stood up. "Your Honor, if I may?" Before we continue, please comment below as I'd love to hear your thoughts and subscribe to the channel to help us hit that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. The truth is, I should have left Vernon years ago. But when you've been with someone since you were 36 years old, when you've built a life with them, when you stood beside them at your daughter's funeral, leaving feels like admitting defeat, and I was raised not to quit. I met Vernon at a church fish fry in 1993. My father, Theodore Harding, had just retired from his construction company, Harding and Sons, though there were no sons to pass it to, just me. Daddy had built that company from nothing, starting with a pickup truck and a toolbox, ending with 36 employees and contracts all over the state. He was the kind of man who commanded respect just by walking into a room. Vernon was handsome back then, tall with broad shoulders and a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. He worked as a regional sales manager for a beverage company, drove a nice car, wore nice clothes. He came from a good family. His mother, Sister Monroe, was one of the pillars of the church. He seemed stable, responsible, safe. We married 6 months later, in June of 1994, at Cornerstone Baptist Church. The reception was held in the church hall, and Daddy paid for everything. My mother had passed 2 years earlier, so Daddy walked me down the aisle alone. I remember him whispering to me right before he let go of my arm, "You sure about this, B-girl? Because if you're not, we can walk right back out that door and no one will say a word." I should have listened to the doubt in his voice. The first few years were good. Vernon was attentive, loving. We bought our house in 1996, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in a nice neighborhood. Vernon said his bonus from work covered the down payment. I didn't question it. I was raised to trust your husband, to let him lead. That's what the church taught. That's what everyone said was right. My daughter, Lydia, from my first marriage, was already grown by then. She'd graduated from Spelman College and moved to California for work. She visited when she could, but she had her own life. It was just Vernon and me, building our future. I worked part-time at the church bookstore for years, not because we needed the money, but because I liked staying busy. Vernon never seemed to mind. He'd kiss me goodbye in the morning, come home in the evening, and we'd have dinner together. We went to church every Sunday. We hosted holiday dinners. From the outside, we looked perfect. The cracks started showing around 2005. Vernon became distant. He started working late, going on more business trips. Money got tight, or at least he said it did. He told me we needed to cut back, that sales were down, that times were hard. I gave up my little job at the bookstore because he said we couldn't afford the gas for 2 cars anymore. I didn't know he'd started gambling. I found out by accident in 2009. I was cleaning out Vernon's car to surprise him. He'd been so stressed lately. And I found a receipt from a casino. Not just any receipt. A cash advance receipt for $5,000. My hands shook as I held that piece of paper. When I confronted him that night, he cried. Real tears, the kind I'd only seen once before, at Lydia's funeral. Our daughter had died in a car accident in 2007, and it had broken something in both of us. Vernon swore the casino was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness, a way to cope with grief. He begged me to forgive him. He promised it would never happen again. I believed him. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was not telling anyone. Not my father, not my friends from church, not even Pastor Williams. I kept Vernon's secret because I thought that's what wives did. You protect your husband. You keep family business inside the family. You work through problems together, in private. But Vernon didn't stop gambling. He just got better at hiding it. Over the next few years, I started noticing things. Credit card bills came addressed to Vernon that he'd snatch away before I could see them. He'd get angry if I asked about money. He started keeping his phone on him all the time, even in the shower. The business trips got more frequent. Sometimes he'd come home at 3 a.m. smelling like cigarettes and cheap liquor, and he'd tell me the client dinner ran late. I wasn't stupid, but I also didn't know what to do. I was 60 years old by then. We'd been married almost 20 years. I didn't work anymore. Where would I go? What would I do? Then, in October 2015, my father died. He was 89 years old, and he went peacefully in his sleep. At the funeral, as I stood over his casket, I made him a promise. I would be strong like he raised me to be. I wouldn't let anyone take advantage of me. I would honor his memory by standing tall. 3 weeks later, Daddy's lawyer, Mr. Jameson, called me in for the reading of the will. Vernon wanted to come with me, but Mr. Jameson had specifically requested to meet with me alone. Vernon seemed irritated by that, but he let me go. That meeting changed everything. Beatrice, Mr. Jameson said, sliding papers across his desk. Your father was a very wealthy man. More than you probably realized. He was right. I knew Daddy had done well with his construction company, but I didn't know he'd invested brilliantly for 50 years. I didn't know he owned properties all over the city. I didn't know he'd been saving and planning and building wealth specifically to take care of me after he was gone. The number Mr. Jameson showed me made my head spin. $20 million. Maybe more, depending on market conditions. Your father set this up in a trust, Mr. Jameson explained. He was very specific about the terms. The money is yours, and yours alone. It cannot be touched by anyone else, including your spouse, without your explicit written permission. He made me promise to tell you that face to face, Beatrice. He said, and I quote, "Make sure my B-girl knows that money is hers to do with as she pleases. If that husband of hers comes sniffing around it, you tell her she can say no." I sat in that leather chair in Mr. Jameson's office and cried. My father had known. Somehow he'd known I'd need protection, even from my own husband. What do you want to do with this information? Mr. Jameson asked gently. Do you want to tell your husband? I thought about it for a long moment. Then I thought about the casino receipt, the late nights, the lies, the way Vernon had been treating me lately, like I was an inconvenience instead of his wife. "No," I said. "I don't want to tell him yet. Can we keep it quiet?" "Absolutely," Mr. Jameson said. "That's your right." The trust is structured so that money can be transferred to your personal accounts without your husband's knowledge. He'll never see it on any joint statements. So that's what we did. Mr. Jameson helped me set up private accounts. The money sat there, quietly, while I figured out what to do with my life. Then, 2 months later, a man came to my door. His name was Curtis Banks, and he was a debt collector. Vernon wasn't home. He was on another business trip. "Mrs. Monroe," Curtis said, standing on my porch in a cheap suit and cheaper shoes. "I'm here about your husband's outstanding debt to Silver Palace Casino. He owes $67,000. The casino has been patient, but they need payment within 30 days, or they're pursuing legal action." $67,000. I felt the porch tilt under my feet. "There must be some mistake," I said. Curtis handed me a folder. Inside were statements, cash advance receipts, IOUs with Vernon's signature. Debt going back years. The $5,000 receipt I'd found was just the tip of the iceberg. "No mistake, ma'am," Curtis said. "Your husband has a serious gambling problem, and if this debt isn't paid, the casino will seize assets. Your house, your cars, everything." I closed the door and leaned against it, the folder clutched in my hands. My whole body was shaking. $67,000. We didn't have $67,000. Or at least, Vernon had told me we didn't. But I did. Thanks to my father, I had $20 million. I called Mr. Jameson. "Pay it," I said. "Pay Vernon's debt. But I want documentation of everything, every penny, where it goes, what it's for. And Vernon is never to know where the money came from." "Beatrice," Mr. Jameson said carefully, "are you sure? This is your money, your inheritance. You don't owe—" "I'm saving my home," I interrupted. "And I need time to think. Just pay it." He paid it. The debt collector went away. Vernon came home from his business trip 3 days later, and he never said a word about it. Never mentioned the debt. Never thanked me. Because he didn't know I'd saved him. That was the first time. It wouldn't be the last. Over the next 10 years, I paid off 7 more of Vernon's gambling debts, $43,000 here, $28,000 there, $96,000, $112,000. Each time a debt collector would show up, or a casino would call, or sometimes Mr. Jameson would get wind of it through his contacts and warn me before it became a legal problem. Each time, I paid it. And each time, Vernon never knew. I kept track of every dollar. Mr. Jameson made sure of it. By 2024, I'd paid over $800,000 of Vernon's gambling debts. Money that came from my inheritance. Money my father had worked his whole life to leave me. Money Vernon didn't even know existed. I stayed quiet because I was waiting, watching, trying to understand who I'd really married. And with each debt I paid, with each lie Vernon told, the picture became clearer. He didn't love me. Maybe he never had. I was convenient. A place to live. Someone to cook his meals and wash his clothes and sit beside him in church so people would think he was a good man. And somewhere along the way, I'd become his safety net. Every time his gambling got him in trouble, some miracle would make the problem disappear, and Vernon thought it was luck. Divine intervention, maybe. It wasn't luck. It was me, cleaning up his messes, protecting our home, keeping us afloat while he dragged us down. In March 2025, Vernon came home and announced he wanted a divorce. I was in the kitchen making his favorite meal. Smothered pork chops, collard greens, candied yams, cornbread. I'd been cooking all afternoon. He walked in, loosened his tie, and said, "Beatrice, I'm done. I want a divorce. I've already talked to a lawyer." I turned off the stove. "Why?" He had the audacity to look annoyed. "Why?" Because I'm not happy, Beatrice. I haven't been happy in years. You're boring. You don't understand me. I need a fresh start. I deserve to enjoy my retirement. Your retirement, I repeated slowly. The retirement I've been funding. What are you talking about? He snapped. You don't fund anything. You've never worked. Everything we have I provided. And now I'm done providing for you. My lawyer says I'll get the house, my pension stays mine, and you'll get a small settlement. Enough for a studio apartment somewhere. You'll be fine. He left the room. Left me standing there with dinner getting cold on the stove. Left me with 32 years of marriage dismissed like it was nothing. I didn't cry. Not this time. This time I called Mr. Jameson. It's time, I said. Get me the best divorce lawyer you know, and gather every piece of documentation we have, every debt I paid, every dollar of my inheritance, everything. That's how I met Rochelle Whitmore. She was 52, sharp as a blade, and when Mr. Jameson showed her my financial records, she actually laughed. Mrs. Monroe, she said, your husband doesn't know what's about to hit him. The divorce proceedings started in May. Vernon's lawyer, Gerald Fletcher, came out swinging. He painted me as incompetent, unstable, completely dependent on Vernon for everything. He claimed I had no assets, no income, no ability to support myself. He submitted a financial disclosure that showed all our marital assets, the house, Vernon's pension, some small savings accounts, and requested that the house be awarded solely to Vernon since he'd paid for everything. I submitted my own financial disclosure, but it only showed what Vernon knew about, which was nothing. Rochelle advised me to wait. Let him hang himself, she said. Let his lawyer keep digging that hole, then we'll bury him in it. The hearing was set for November 11th. Vernon seemed confident. He told people at church we were divorcing because I'd become difficult in my old age. He told his friends I was trying to take him for everything he had. He played the victim so well that some people actually felt sorry for him. Meanwhile, I went to church every Sunday, held my head high, and said nothing. Let them think what they wanted. The truth would come out soon enough. And now here we were, in court. Vernon on the stand, lying under oath. His lawyer making me sound like a helpless child. Judge Thornton listening with her sharp, intelligent eyes. Rochelle stood up. Your Honor, if I may? Proceed, Ms. Whitmore, Judge Thornton said. Rochelle opened her briefcase. Your Honor, opposing counsel has painted a very specific picture of my client as someone with no assets, no resources, and no financial capability. I'd like to enter evidence that directly contradicts every claim made today. Vernon's lawyer stood up. Objection, Your Honor. We've seen Mrs. Monroe's financial disclosure. There's nothing there. That's because you weren't looking in the right place, Rochelle said smoothly. She handed a thick folder to the bailiff. I'm entering into evidence the complete financial portfolio of Mrs. Beatrice Monroe, including documentation of a trust established by her late father in 2015, currently valued at $20 million. The courtroom went silent. I watched Vernon's face go from confused to pale in about 3 seconds. Furthermore, Rochelle continued, her voice growing stronger, I'm entering evidence of repeated payments made by Mrs. Monroe over the past 10 years, totaling over $800,000, to cover Mr. Monroe's gambling debts. Debts he incurred without his wife's knowledge. Debts he never disclosed. Debts that would have resulted in the loss of their home had Mrs. Monroe not intervened, using her own inherited money to save the marital assets Mr. Monroe now claims to have provided. Vernon stood up. That's not... Sit down, Mr. Monroe, Judge Thornton said sharply. Rochelle handed another document to the bailiff. I have statements from 3 separate casinos, 2 debt collection agencies, and Mr. Monroe's own bank showing cash advances totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have proof that Mrs. Monroe paid every single one of these debts to protect her home and her husband's reputation. And I have testimony from Mrs. Monroe's financial advisor that Mr. Monroe has never known about her inheritance, has never had access to these funds, and has no legal claim to them whatsoever. Judge Thornton was reading the documents now, her expression growing darker with each page. Vernon's lawyer was flipping through his copies, and I could see the moment he realized he'd been played. His whole case had been built on me being helpless. Now he was looking at evidence that I was not only financially independent, but had been supporting Vernon for years. "Your Honor," Rochelle said, and now her voice had an edge to it. "Mr. Monroe has committed fraud in these proceedings. He has lied under oath about his financial situation. He has concealed massive debts. He has attempted to portray himself as a provider when, in fact, he has been living off his wife's secret generosity for a decade. He wants the house? The house he claims he paid for? Mrs. Monroe paid for that house. She paid his debts. She paid for the lifestyle he's been living while he gambled away his income. And now—" Rochelle turned to look at Vernon, and I saw real anger in her eyes. "Now he has the audacity to stand in this courtroom and call her incompetent." Vernon was staring at me now. His face had gone from pale to red. His mouth was opening and closing, but no words were coming out. Judge Thornton set down the papers. "Mr. Fletcher, would you like to explain to me why your client failed to disclose over $800,000 in debts?" Gerald Fletcher was sweating now. "Your Honor, my client didn't inform me." "Your client lied to you," Judge Thornton said flatly. "And worse, he lied to this court. Mr. Monroe, stand up." Vernon stood. His legs were shaking. I could see it from where I sat. "Mr. Monroe, did you or did you not incur substantial gambling debts during your marriage?" Judge Thornton asked. Vernon's mouth worked. Your Honor, I can explain. Yes or no, Mr. Monroe?" "Yes." "Did you disclose these debts in your financial statement to this court?" Silence. "Mr. Monroe, answer the question." "No," Vernon whispered. "But I didn't know Beatrice." "What you knew or didn't know about your wife's finances is irrelevant," Judge Thornton snapped. "You had an obligation to disclose your own debts. You didn't. That's fraud, Mr. Monroe. That's perjury." She looked at Gerald Fletcher. "Mr. Fletcher, I suggest you have a very long conversation with your client." "This hearing is continued for 2 weeks while I review all of this evidence. And Mr. Monroe?" She fixed Vernon with a look that could have frozen fire. "If I were you, I'd start praying that the prosecutor's office doesn't get interested in what happened here today." The gavel came down like a gunshot. Rochelle gathered her papers calmly. Vernon was still standing there, stunned. His lawyer was hissing something at him, angry and panicked. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress. As I walked past Vernon toward the courtroom doors, I stopped. Just for a moment, long enough to look him in the eye. 32 years, Vernon," I said quietly. "I stood by you for 32 years. I buried our daughter beside you. I kept your secrets. I saved you over and over, and you never even knew. And this?" I gestured at the courtroom. "At the mess he'd made? This is how you repay me?" Vernon reached for me. I didn't know." I stepped back. "No, you didn't know. Because you never asked. You never wondered how those debts disappeared. You never questioned why we didn't lose the house. You just took and took and took, and you assumed it was your right." "Please," he said, and there were tears in his eyes now. "Please, B, we can fix this. We can't fix anything," I said. "You made your choice. You wanted a divorce? You've got one, but you won't get my house. You won't get my money. And you sure as hell won't get my mercy." I turned and walked out of that courtroom with my head high, Rochelle beside me. Behind us, I could hear Vernon calling my name, but I didn't look back. I was done looking back. The first person to call me after the hearing was my goddaughter, Tamara. She'd been sitting in the back of the courtroom. I hadn't even known she was there until she caught up with me in the parking lot. "Aunt B?" she called out, running in her heels. Tamara was 38, a social worker with 2 kids and the biggest heart I'd ever known. Her mother, Denise, had been my best friend since high school. Denise passed from breast cancer in 2018, and I'd promised her I'd look after Tamara. "Baby girl," I said, pulling her into a hug. "What are you doing here?" "Mr. Jameson told me about the hearing," she said, pulling back to look at me. Her eyes were fierce. "I wanted to be here for you. Aunt B, that was amazing. The look on Uncle Vernon's face when your lawyer dropped all that evidence. I wish Mama could have seen it." I felt tears prick my eyes at the mention of Denise. "Your Mama knew," I said softly. "She tried to warn me about Vernon years ago. I didn't listen." Tamara linked her arm through mine. "Well, you're listening to yourself now. That's what matters. Come on, let's get you home. You've had a long day." But I didn't want to go home. Home was the house I'd shared with Vernon for almost 3 decades. The house that still smelled like him, still had his coffee mug in the sink, still had his shoes by the door. The house where I'd paid his debts in secret and cried in the bathroom when he came home smelling like casinos. "I don't want to go there," I admitted. "Not yet." Tamara squeezed my arm. "Then we'll go to my place. I'll make coffee, we'll talk, or we won't talk." "Whatever you need." That's where I spent the rest of that Tuesday, in Tamara's cozy living room, drinking coffee and trying to process what had just happened. Her kids, Zion and Amara, came home from school and immediately hugged me, their young faces full of concern. "Granny B, are you okay?" Amara asked. She was 12, all long legs and curiosity. "I'm okay, baby," I told her. "Just going through some grown-up stuff." "Is it about Mr. Vernon?" Zion asked. "He was 14 and too smart for his own good. Mama said he was being mean to you." "Zion," Tamara warned. "No, it's okay," I said. I looked at both kids. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Sometimes people we love disappoint us. But that doesn't mean we stop being strong. You understand? They nodded, even though I wasn't sure they really understood. How could they? I was 68 years old, and I was still figuring it out myself. My phone rang constantly that evening. Church members who'd heard about the hearing, neighbors asking if I was all right, my cousin Francine from Atlanta demanding to know why I hadn't told her Vernon was a lying, gambling fool years ago. But the call I was dreading came around 8 o'clock. Vernon. I stared at his name on the screen. Tamara looked at me. "You don't have to answer." But I did. Because I needed to hear what he would say. Needed to know if there was any shred of the man I'd married still in there, or if it had all been an act. I answered, "What do you want, Vernon?" "B." His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. "B, please, we need to talk." "We have lawyers for that." "No, I mean really talk. Face to face, please. Just give me 30 minutes. I can explain everything." I should have said no. Rochelle had specifically told me not to meet with Vernon without her present. But 32 years of marriage doesn't just disappear because of one courtroom revelation. Part of me, a small, foolish part, still wanted to believe he'd have an explanation that made sense. "Tomorrow," I said, 2 o'clock at Corner Cafe, in public, 30 minutes. "Thank you," he breathed. "Thank you, B. I'll be there." I hung up. Tamara was shaking her head. "Aunt B." "I know," I said, "but I need to hear what he has to say. I need closure." "Closure is overrated," Tamara muttered. "But okay, I'm coming with you. I'll sit at another table, but I'm coming." The next day, Wednesday, I dressed carefully. Not too nice, not too casual. I wanted Vernon to see me as I really was, not the helpless woman he'd described in court, but not dressed up like I was trying to prove something either. Just Beatrice. The woman who'd loved him, supported him, and saved him without him ever knowing. Tamara drove me to Corner Cafe. a little black-owned restaurant on the east side that served the best sweet tea in the city. We arrived 15 minutes early. Vernon was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking like he hadn't slept. "I'll be right over there," Tamara said, pointing to a table by the window. "You need me? You just look my way." I nodded and walked to Vernon's booth. He stood up when he saw me, like he was going to hug me, but I slid into the seat across from him before he could try. "B," he started. "You have 30 minutes, I said. "Talk." He ran his hands over his face. Up close, I could see how much he'd aged. The lines around his eyes were deeper. His hair was more gray than black now. He looked old. We were old. And we'd wasted so many years. "I didn't know," he began. "About your inheritance. I swear, B, I had no idea your father left you that money." "I know you didn't," I said. "That was the point." He flinched. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I saw the casino receipt, Vernon. Back in 2009. You promised me it was one time. You cried and swore you'd never gamble again. I believed you. And then the debt collectors started showing up." His eyes widened. You knew?" "I knew everything," I said quietly. "Every debt, every casino, every lie. I paid them all, Vernon. Over $800,000 over 10 years. I saved our house. I saved your reputation." "I saved you." He was crying now, tears running down his face. "I'm sick, B. I have a problem. I know that now. I'll get help. I'll go to Gamblers Anonymous. I'll do therapy. Whatever it takes. Just please don't leave me." I looked at this man I'd spent more than half my life with. This man who'd stood beside me at our daughter's grave. This man who'd just tried to paint me as incompetent in front of a judge so he could take everything I had. "You filed for divorce," I reminded him. "You told me I was boring. You said you deserved better. You were ready to throw me out with nothing." "I was scared," he said desperately. "I was drowning in debt again. I owed money to some dangerous people, B. I thought if I could get the house, I could sell it, pay them off, start over. I wasn't thinking straight." "You owe more money?" I asked, my blood running cold. He nodded miserably. "About 90,000. To a private lender. They've been threatening me. Said if I don't pay by the end of the month, they'll..." He broke off, shaking. "They'll what, Vernon?" "It doesn't matter," he said quickly. "I'll figure it out. That's not why I asked you here. I asked you here to apologize. To beg you to forgive me. To ask if there's any chance at all, that we can save our marriage." I sat back in the booth. Part of me, the part that remembered young Vernon at the church fish fry, that remembered dancing at our wedding, that remembered how he held me when Lydia died. That part wanted to say yes, wanted to believe people could change, wanted to save him one more time. But the stronger part, the part that sounded like my father's voice, said no. "Vernon," I said slowly, "I don't think you're asking me to save our marriage. I think you're asking me to save you from your debt. Again." "No," he protested, but his eyes told the truth. "How long have you owed this 90,000? I asked. About 6 months." "6 months," I repeated. 6 months ago, we were still married. You weren't talking about divorce. What changed?" He was silent. "What changed, Vernon?" "They gave me an ultimatum," he whispered. "Pay by November 30th or they'd come after everything. The house, the cars, my pension." I panicked. I thought if I could divorce you, get the house, sell it quick, I could pay them off and you'd never have to know. You could find a little apartment, be comfortable on whatever small settlement you got, and I'd handle my mess without dragging you into it. "So you were willing to make me homeless to cover your gambling debts," I said flatly. "You're twisting it." "Am I?" My voice was getting louder now. People in the cafe were starting to look. I didn't care. "You stood in court yesterday and called me incompetent. You tried to take everything. And now you're sitting here telling me it was to protect me? B, Please. No. I stood up. No more. I'm done protecting you, Vernon. I'm done saving you. I'm done being your safety net while you gamble away everything we worked for. You want to save yourself? Figure it out. But you're not using me to do it. Wait. He grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, desperate. Tamara was across the cafe in seconds. Let her go. Vernon looked up at her, then at me, then back at his hand on my arm. He let go slowly. I loved you, I said softly. For 32 years, I loved you. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. And you don't respect me, Vernon. You never did. I walked out of that cafe with Tamara beside me. Vernon didn't follow. When I looked back through the window, he was still sitting in that booth, his head in his hands. You okay? Tamara asked as we got in her car. No, I said honestly. But I will be. That evening, I called Rochelle. Vernon owes another $90,000 to some private lender. He's being threatened. That's not your problem, Rochelle said immediately. I know, but I wanted you to be aware. He might try something desperate. Let him try, Rochelle said grimly. After what he pulled in court, Judge Thornton isn't going to be sympathetic. Speaking of which, I got the continued hearing date. December 2nd, 2 weeks. Can you be ready? I've been ready, I said. The next few days were strange. I stayed at Tamara's house, not ready to face my own home yet. Church on Sunday was awkward. People knew about the hearing, and they didn't know how to act around me. Some were supportive. Sister Patterson hugged me and said, "You hold your head high, Beatrice. The truth always comes out." Others avoided eye contact, like divorce was contagious. Vernon didn't show up to church. His mother, Sister Monroe, did. She cornered me after service. "Beatrice," she said, her voice cold, "you've humiliated my son." I looked at this woman who'd welcomed me into her family 30 years ago. Sister Monroe, with all due respect. Your son humiliated himself. He made a mistake. He made many mistakes, I interrupted, and he tried to destroy me to cover them up. I'm sorry if the truth embarrassed you, but I won't apologize for defending myself. She drew herself up, her Sunday hat tilted at an indignant angle. The Bible says wives should submit. The Bible also says husbands should love their wives as Christ loved the church, I shot back. Did your son love me when he gambled away hundreds of thousands of dollars? Did he love me when he lied under oath? Did he love me when he tried to make me homeless? Sister Monroe had no answer for that. She walked away, her back rigid with disapproval. Pastor Williams found me a few minutes later in the church library. He was in his 60s, a good man who'd led our church for 20 years. Sister Beatrice, he said gently, how are you holding up? I'm managing, Pastor. He sat down across from me. I heard about the hearing. I want you to know that the church supports you. Whatever you need. Thank you, I said, surprised. But some people seem to think I'm the one in the wrong. Pastor Williams sighed. Some people think wives should suffer in silence. I'm not one of them. God doesn't call us to be doormats, Sister Beatrice. He calls us to be strong, to stand for truth, to protect ourselves from harm. You did that. I'm proud of you. His words made me cry. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that from someone at church. Someone in authority. Someone who wasn't telling me to forgive and forget and submit. There's something else, Pastor Williams said. Vernon came to see me yesterday. He asked me to talk to you, to convince you to drop the divorce. What did you tell him? I told him that marriage counseling only works when both people are honest, and that he'd broken too much trust for me to advocate for reconciliation right now. I told him to focus on getting help for his gambling addiction and making amends for his lies. How'd he take that? Pastor Williams gave me a wry smile. About as well as you'd expect. He accused me of taking your side. Are you? I asked. Taking my side? I'm taking the side of truth, Sister Beatrice. And the truth is that Brother Vernon wronged you deeply. What you do with that truth is up to you, but you have my support either way. I left church that day feeling a little lighter, Not everyone thought I was wrong. Not everyone believed I should just forgive Vernon and move on. Some people saw the truth. But Vernon wasn't done trying. On Tuesday morning, a week before the continued hearing, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Monroe? A man's voice, professional but with an edge. Yes? This is Detective Harold Washington with the police department. I'm calling about your husband, Vernon Monroe. My heart stopped. What about him? He's been arrested. He tried to cash a fraudulent check for $50,000 yesterday afternoon. The bank flagged it, and we brought him in for questioning. He's claiming it was a misunderstanding, but the check was made out from a business account that doesn't exist. I closed my eyes. Detective, I'm in the middle of divorcing my husband. I don't know anything about his financial dealings. I understand, ma'am, but he listed you as his emergency contact. He's asking for bail money, $50,000. I'm not paying his bail, I said firmly. There was a pause. Ma'am, I should tell you, your husband is in pretty bad shape. He says he owes money to some dangerous people. He was trying to get cash to pay them. He seems genuinely frightened. That's not my responsibility, I said, and I meant it. If he's in danger because of his gambling debts, that's a consequence of his own actions. Understood, Detective Washington said. I'll let him know. But ma'am, be careful. If your husband does owe money to the wrong people, they might come looking for assets. Make sure your home is secure. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called Rochelle immediately. Vernon's been arrested for check fraud, I told her. He tried to cash a fake check for $50,000. Rochelle was quiet for a moment. Well, that's going to make our case even stronger. Judge Thornton is not going to be sympathetic to a man who commits crimes to feed his gambling addiction. He says he's in danger, that he owes money to dangerous people. Again, not your problem, but I'll contact the police and make sure they're aware of the divorce proceedings. We don't want anyone trying to claim you're responsible for his debts. That night, I finally went back to my house. Tamara offered to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. I needed to walk through those rooms and decide what I was keeping and what I was leaving behind. The house was dark and quiet. Vernon's car wasn't in the driveway. It was probably in some police impound lot. I let myself in and turned on the lights. Everything looked the same, but it felt different. Like I was a stranger in my own home. Like these walls had been holding secrets I didn't know. I walked through the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom. I opened Vernon's closet and saw his clothes hanging there, neat and pressed. I opened his dresser drawers and found nothing unusual. If there were clues to his secret life, he'd hidden them well. Then I remembered. The garage. Vernon spent a lot of time in the garage, said he liked to tinker with things out there. I went out through the kitchen door. The garage was separate from the house, a two-car structure that Vernon had converted into a workshop. He kept it locked. Said he didn't want me messing with his tools. I found the key on his keyring. I'd grabbed it from the bowl by the front door. The lock turned easily. I pushed open the door and flipped on the light. The garage wasn't a workshop. It was a gambling den. There was a poker table in the center, professional grade. Shelves lined with whiskey bottles, most empty. A filing cabinet in the corner, and on the walls, betting slips, racing forms, casino receipts, years and years of evidence of Vernon's addiction pinned up like trophies. I walked to the filing cabinet and pulled open the top drawer. It was full of papers. I pulled them out, my hands shaking. Loans, credit cards I'd never seen, more casino statements, and letters. Threatening letters from debt collectors, from loan sharks, from casinos. Some were recent, some were years old. One letter was dated just 2 weeks ago. It was from someone named Marcus Reeves. The language was brutal. Final warning, $90,000 by November 30th or we're taking everything. Your house, your car, your kneecaps. Don't test us. I felt cold all over. Vernon hadn't been exaggerating about the danger. He really did owe money to dangerous people. people who threatened violence. But that still wasn't my problem. Was it? I gathered up every paper in that filing cabinet. Every receipt, every letter, every piece of evidence. I put it all in boxes and loaded it into my car. Then I locked the garage and went back inside the house. I called Rochelle. "You need to see this." "See what?" "Everything. Vernon's been keeping records. I found his garage full of evidence. I'm bringing it all to you tomorrow." "Beatrice," Rochelle said slowly, "this could be exactly what we need. If we can prove he's been lying about his finances for years, not just recently, the judge will throw his whole case out." I spent that night in my own bed for the first time in over a week. The house was too quiet, too empty, too full of ghosts. But I wasn't scared. I was angry. And anger, I was learning, was a much more useful emotion than fear. The next morning, I took all the boxes to Rochelle's office. We spent 3 hours going through everything. With each document, Rochelle's eyes got wider. "This is incredible," she kept saying. "This is documentation of fraud, of hidden assets, of systematic lying. Beatrice, he's been running up debts for 15 years, maybe longer." "Can we use it all in court?" I asked. "Every bit of it. And I'm also going to recommend you get a restraining order. If this Marcus Reeves is threatening violence, we need to make sure you're protected. Vernon's the one who owes the money, not me." "Doesn't matter. These people don't care about legal distinctions. If they think you have money, they'll come after you to get to him. We need to protect you." The restraining order was filed that afternoon. It prohibited Vernon from coming within 500 feet of me or contacting me directly. The only communication would be through our lawyers. That evening, Mr. Jameson called. "Beatrice, I've been reviewing your accounts. Your inheritance is secure. Vernon can't touch it. But I want to make sure you understand something. That money is yours. You don't owe Vernon anything. You don't owe his creditors anything. Whatever happens to him now, it's not your responsibility." "I know," I said. "Do you?" Mr. Jameson asked gently. "Because I know you. You have a generous heart, and I'm worried that when push comes to shove, you're going to try to save him again." "I won't," I said. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Friday evening, 3 days before the continued hearing, someone knocked on my door. It was almost 8 o'clock. Dark outside. I looked through the peephole and saw a man I didn't recognize. Tall, heavy build, expensive suit. "Who is it?" I called through the door. "Mrs. Monroe, my name is Marcus Reeves. I need to talk to you about your husband." My blood ran cold. This was the loan shark, the man who'd threatened to take Vernon's kneecaps. "I don't have anything to say to you," I called back. "Mrs. Monroe, I think you do. See, I know about your little inheritance. And I know Vernon owes me $90,000. Now you can pay his debt, or I can make both your lives very difficult. Your choice." I picked up my phone and dialed 911. "There's a man at my door threatening me," I said to the operator. "Mrs. Monroe," Marcus Reeves called. "I'm not threatening you. I'm just having a conversation." "The police are on their way," I called back. I heard him curse. Then footsteps, walking away. A car starting up. By the time the police arrived 5 minutes later, he was gone. I gave them a description, told them about the letter, about Vernon's debts, about everything. They filed a report and promised to increase patrols in my neighborhood. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about Marcus Reeves, about Vernon in jail, about the hearing in 3 days. About 32 years of marriage ending in threats and lies and courtrooms. And I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for a fair divorce settlement anymore. I was fighting for my life. Saturday morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Rochelle, and she sounded urgent. "Beatrice, I need you to meet me at my office. Now. Something's happened." I got dressed quickly and drove to her office. When I arrived, Rochelle wasn't alone. There were 2 men in suits with her, FBI agents, as it turned out. Special Agents Rivera and Chen. "Mrs. Monroe," Agent Rivera said, "please sit down. We need to talk about Marcus Reeves." My mouth went dry. "What about him?" "He's been on our radar for a while," Agent Rivera explained. "Loan sharking, extortion, money laundering. When the local police filed your report last night, it pinged our system. We understand your husband owes Mr. Reeves $90,000? "That's what Vernon told me," I said. "But I'm divorcing Vernon. His debts aren't my responsibility." "We know," Agent Chen said. "But Mr. Reeves doesn't see it that way. We've been monitoring his communications, and he's planning to pressure you into paying Vernon's debt. We'd like your help." "What kind of help?" I asked warily. "We want to record any interactions you have with Reeves. If we can get him on tape threatening you or attempting extortion, we can arrest him. He's a dangerous man, Mrs. Monroe. He's hurt people before. We want to get him off the streets." I looked at Rochelle. She nodded slightly. "It's your choice, Beatrice. But if you do this, you'd be protecting yourself and potentially a lot of other people." I thought about it. Thought about Marcus Reeves showing up at my door. Thought about living in fear. Thought about what my father would do. "Okay," I said. "I'll help, but I want protection." "You'll have it," Agent Rivera promised. "We'll have agents nearby at all times. You'll wear a wire. If anything goes wrong, we'll be there in seconds." They explained the plan. They'd monitor Reeves. If he approached me again, I'd let him talk, try to get him to explicitly threaten me or demand money. Simple. Except nothing about this situation was simple. Sunday, I went to church. Pastor Williams announced from the pulpit that the church family was praying for me. Several people came up after service to offer support. Sister Patterson invited me to her weekly prayer group. Deacon Harris said if I needed anything at all, I should call him. But there were still whispers. Still people who thought I should forgive Vernon, take him back, stand by my man. I heard one woman say to her friend, "If she'd been a better wife, maybe he wouldn't have needed to gamble." I wanted to turn around and tell her exactly what I thought of that opinion. But I didn't. I just held my head high and kept walking. That afternoon, Tamara came over with her kids. We made dinner together. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, green beans, cornbread. Comfort food. The kind of meal that makes you feel like family is real and solid and good. "Granny B," Amara said while we were setting the table, "are you going to be okay?" I pulled her into a hug. "Yes, baby. I'm going to be just fine." "Good," she said fiercely. "Because Mr. Vernon was mean and you deserve better. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say." Monday afternoon, the day before the hearing, Marcus Reeves called my cell phone. I don't know how he got the number. The FBI agents had given me a wire to wear at all times, just in case. When I saw the unknown number, my heart started pounding. But I answered. "Hello?" "Mrs. Monroe, it's Marcus Reeves. We need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Oh, but we do. See, your husband is sitting in jail right now, and that debt he owes me? It's growing interest every day. 90,000 is now 100,000. By the end of the week, it'll be 110. You see how this works?" "That's not legal," I said. He laughed. "Legal? That's cute." "Mrs. Monroe, I'm not a bank. I don't care about legal. I care about getting my money." "And you have money. Lots of it, from what I hear." "My inheritance has nothing to do with Vernon's debts." "That's where you're wrong. Everything married people have is shared, right? That's how it works. So you can pay me, or I can make your life very uncomfortable." "Are you threatening me, Mr. Reeves?" "I'm explaining reality to you. Vernon gambled away my money. Someone has to pay it back. If it's not him, it's you. If it's not you, well, maybe it's that goddaughter of yours. Tamara, right? Social worker, 2 kids, lives on the west side." My blood turned to ice. "You leave her alone. Then pay me my money. $100,000, cash, by Friday. I'll text you the location." He hung up. I sat there shaking. The FBI agents had been listening to the whole conversation. Agent Rivera called me within minutes. "We got it all, Mrs. Monroe. That's textbook extortion. We're moving to arrest him now." "He threatened my goddaughter," I said, my voice shaking. "He threatened Tamara's children." "We'll protect them," Agent Rivera promised. "We're putting surveillance on their house right now. Reeves won't get near them." That evening, I got a call from Agent Chen. "We picked up Marcus Reeves an hour ago. He's in custody. You don't have to worry about him anymore." I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt numb. This was my life now. FBI agents, loan sharks, threats against my family. All because I'd married a man who couldn't stop gambling. Tuesday morning, December 2nd. The day of the continued hearing. I dressed in my best suit, navy blue with a cream blouse, professional, strong. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. A month ago, I'd been Vernon's quiet wife. Now I was someone who stood up in court, who worked with the FBI, who refused to be a victim. Rochelle met me at the courthouse. Ready? As I'll ever be. The courtroom was more crowded this time. Tamara was there, along with Pastor Williams, Deacon Harris, and about a dozen other church members. Sister Patterson gave me a thumbs up as I walked past. Even Mr. Jameson was there, sitting in the back with his briefcase. Vernon was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked terrible, gaunt, unshaven, older than his 69 years. His eyes found mine across the courtroom, and I saw desperation there, pleading. But I looked away. Judge Thornton entered, and we all stood. She sat down, arranged her papers, and looked at Vernon with an expression that could have frozen the sun. "Mr. Monroe," she began, "since our last hearing, you've been arrested for check fraud. Would you like to explain that to me?" Vernon's new lawyer, Gerald Fletcher, had dropped him, stood up. "Your Honor, my client was under extreme duress. He was being threatened by loan sharks. He made a poor decision in a moment of panic." "A poor decision," Judge Thornton repeated flatly. "Mr. Monroe attempted to cash a fraudulent check for $50,000. That's not a poor decision. That's a crime." She looked at Vernon. "Anything to say for yourself?" Vernon stood up slowly. "Your Honor, I'm a sick man. I have a gambling addiction. I've made terrible mistakes. But I'm ready to get help. I'm ready to change. I'm asking the court for mercy." "Mercy," Judge Thornton said. "You want mercy. Did you show your wife mercy when you tried to take everything from her? Did you show mercy when you lied under oath? Did you show mercy when you gambled away hundreds of thousands of dollars and let her clean up your messes without even knowing?" Vernon had no answer. Judge Thornton turned to Rochelle. "Ms. Whitmore, I've reviewed all the evidence you submitted, the financial records, the debt documentation, everything. I'm prepared to make my ruling." Rochelle stood. "Thank you, Your Honor. We also have additional evidence if the court will allow it. Evidence of Mr. Monroe's systematic deception over 15 years. She submitted the documents I'd found in the garage. Every receipt, every threatening letter, every lie documented in black and white. Judge Thornton spent 10 minutes reading through them. The courtroom was silent. I could hear my own heartbeat. Finally, she looked up. "I've seen a lot of cases in my years on the bench, but this level of deception, this systematic betrayal of a spouse's trust, it's appalling." She looked at Vernon. "Mr. Monroe, you didn't just make mistakes. You built an entire secret life. You lied to your wife for years. You endangered her financial security. You tried to steal her home. And then, when faced with the consequences, you committed fraud." She paused. "This court finds in favor of Mrs. Monroe on all counts. Mr. Monroe, you are awarded nothing. No share of the house, no share of Mrs. Monroe's inheritance, no spousal support. Furthermore, Mrs. Monroe is awarded the house free and clear, along with all marital assets. You will be responsible for all your debts, past and present. Mrs. Monroe is not liable for any of your financial obligations." Vernon made a sound, a gasp or a sob. I couldn't tell. "Additionally," Judge Thornton continued, "I'm ordering you to pay Mrs. Monroe $800,000 in restitution for the debts she paid on your behalf over the past 10 years. You defrauded her, Mr. Monroe, and fraud has consequences." "Your Honor," Vernon's lawyer said weakly, "my client doesn't have that kind of money." "Then I suggest he find it," Judge Thornton snapped. "He managed to gamble away over $1 million over the years. He can figure out how to repay his wife, garnish his wages, garnish his pension. I don't care. Mrs. Monroe will get her money." She banged her gavel. "This marriage is dissolved. We're adjourned." It was over, just like that. 32 years of marriage ended with the strike of a gavel. I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. Rochelle was squeezing my hand. Behind me, I heard someone, Sister Patterson, I think, say, "Thank you, Jesus." Vernon was led away by the bailiff. He looked back at me once, and I saw his mouth move. I think he said, "I'm sorry." But I couldn't hear him. And even if I could, it wouldn't have mattered. Sorry doesn't undo 32 years of lies. Outside the courtroom, I was surrounded by people. Tamara hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Pastor Williams shook my hand. Sister Patterson was crying happy tears. Even Deacon Harris, usually so stoic, patted my shoulder and said, "You did good, Sister Beatrice. Real good." Rochelle pulled me aside. "Beatrice, I have to tell you, that's the most satisfying case I've won in 20 years. Judge Thornton doesn't usually award restitution in divorce cases. She was sending a message." "What message?" I asked. "That women don't have to tolerate this anymore. That lies have consequences. That the law protects people like you." She smiled. "You're going to be okay. Better than okay." That evening, I went back to my house. My house. Not our house anymore. Mine. I walked through the rooms, and this time they felt different. They felt like possibility. I called Mr. Jameson. "I want to do something with the money from my inheritance. Something good." "What did you have in mind?" he asked. "A foundation. For women going through difficult divorces. Women who don't have resources. Women who need lawyers, or housing, or job training. I want to help them the way people helped me." "Beatrice," Mr. Jameson said, and his voice was thick with emotion, "your father would be so proud of you." Over the next few weeks, things started to settle. Vernon pleaded guilty to the check fraud charge and got 2 years probation and mandatory treatment for his gambling addiction. The garnishment on his pension started immediately. I'd be getting money back slowly, but I'd be getting it. Marcus Reeves and 2 of his associates were indicted on multiple counts of extortion, money laundering, and racketeering. The FBI told me I might have to testify, but they had so much evidence that most of the defendants would probably take plea deals. I started the Harding Foundation, named after my father, in January. We helped 3 women in our first month, paid for their lawyers, their moving costs, their childcare so they could go to court. Seeing their faces when we told them we'd help, that was better than any revenge. Tamara became the foundation's first board member. Pastor Williams helped us connect with other churches and community organizations. Sister Patterson volunteered to mentor women going through divorces. Even Deacon Harris got involved, offering free financial counseling. I sold the house in March. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place, a cozy townhouse near Tamara and the kids. I could walk to the coffee shop, to the park, to the little bookstore on the corner. I had neighbors who became friends. I had a life that was mine. One Saturday in April, I was at the farmer's market when I saw Vernon. He was alone, looked thinner, older. He saw me too. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the vegetable stands and the flower displays. Then he walked over. "B. Vernon. You look good," he said. "Happy." "I am." He nodded slowly. "I'm in treatment. Gamblers Anonymous, therapy, the whole thing. Been clean for 4 months now." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. "I'm glad you're getting help." "I know I can't undo what I did," he said, "but I want you to know. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not because of the court ruling or the money or any of that. I'm sorry because I hurt you, and you deserved better." I looked at this man who'd been my husband for 3 decades. I didn't feel anger anymore, just sadness for what could have been. "I forgive you, Vernon. Not for you. For me. Because I don't want to carry that weight anymore." His eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you in my life," I added gently. "We're done, you and me. We have to be." He nodded. "I know. I needed you to know I'm trying to be better. To be the man I should have been all along." "Then do that," I said. "Be better. For yourself. Not for me or anyone else. Just for you." I walked away then, left him standing there in the farmer's market, and I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a heavy suitcase for years, and finally set it down. That evening, Tamara and I sat on my new porch, watching Zion and Amara play in the yard. The spring air was warm, full of the smell of flowers blooming. Everything felt new, fresh, like the world was full of possibilities I'd forgotten existed. "You did it, Aunt Bee," Tamara said softly. "You really did it." "You saved yourself." "I had help," I said. "You, Rochelle, Pastor Williams, Mr. Jameson, the FBI." I laughed. "That's a sentence I never thought I'd say." "But you were the one who decided to fight," Tamara insisted. "You were the one who stood up in that courtroom and refused to be a victim. That was all you." I thought about that. About the woman I'd been a year ago. Quiet, scared, paying Vernon's debts in secret, and hoping things would somehow get better. About the woman I was now, strong, independent, helping other women find their own strength. "You know what the best part is?" I said. "I'm 68 years old, and I'm just now figuring out who I really am. Who I am without Vernon, without anyone else's expectations. Just Beatrice. And I kind of like her." Tamara smiled. "I like her too. She's pretty amazing." The foundation grew. By the end of the year, we'd helped 27 women. We got donations from local businesses, from churches, from people who heard our story and wanted to help. We partnered with law firms for pro bono work. We created a network of resources: housing, job training, counseling, childcare. I started speaking at churches and community centers, telling my story, not for attention or sympathy, but because I learned that my story could help other women realize they weren't alone, that they could leave, that they could fight back, that they could win. One woman came up to me after a talk in November. She was in her 50s, tears streaming down her face. "I've been with my husband for 28 years, she whispered. "He doesn't gamble, but he controls everything. The money, the house, what I wear, who I see. I thought I was trapped. But hearing you talk, maybe I'm not." I held her hands. "You're not trapped. You have options. Let me help you." We helped her. Got her a lawyer, helped her find an apartment, connected her with job training. 6 months later, she sent me a photo of her in her new apartment, smiling bigger than the sun. "I'm free," she wrote. "Thank you for showing me how." That's what it was all about. Freedom. Not just for me, but for all the women who thought they had to stay, had to endure, had to accept whatever their husbands did to them. Freedom was possible. I was living proof. I turned 69 in June. Tamara threw me a party. Nothing fancy, just family and friends in my backyard. Pastor Williams blessed the food. Sister Patterson brought her famous pound cake. Deacon Harris told embarrassing stories about the church-building fund committee I'd joined. As the sun set and the lightning bugs came out, I sat on my porch and looked at all these people, my chosen family, and I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace. Real, deep, bone-settling peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Rochelle. Just heard? Vernon's restitution payments are up to date. You'll have your full $800K back within 5 years. I smiled and put the phone away. The money was nice, but it wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that I'd stood up for myself. That I'd refused to be silent. That I'd taken back my life. My father used to say, "B-girl, life is going to knock you down sometimes. The question isn't whether you fall. It's whether you get back up." I'd fallen. God knows I'd fallen hard. But I got back up, and I was standing taller than I ever had before. In December, a year after that final court hearing, I stood in front of the Harding Foundation's new office. We'd grown enough to need actual space, and cut the ribbon. News cameras were there. The mayor came to speak. But the most important people were the women standing beside me. Women we'd helped. Women who'd found their own freedom. Women who'd gotten back up. Vernon sent me a card that Christmas. Just a simple note. "Congratulations on the foundation. Your father would be proud. So am I. V." I put it in a drawer and closed it. Some chapters of your life need to stay closed. Vernon was getting better, and I was genuinely glad for that. But his story and mine had diverged. We were on different paths now, and that was how it needed to be. On New Year's Eve, Tamara asked me what my resolution was. "To keep standing tall," I said. "To keep helping women find their strength. To honor my father's memory by being the woman he raised me to be." "And what kind of woman is that?" Tamara asked. I smiled. "The kind who doesn't quit. The kind who fights for what's right. The kind who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less." That's who I was. That's who I'd always been, underneath all those years of playing small, of keeping quiet, of letting Vernon's needs eclipse my own. I'd spent 32 years being Mrs. Vernon Monroe. Now I got to spend however many years I had left just being Beatrice. Beatrice Harding Monroe. Founder, fighter, free woman. And let me tell you, freedom looked good on me. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and share your own experiences below. We're all in this together.